Welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Woman, where we recognize and celebrate women of all ages and all stages of this happy life. I'm Fiona Briffa, and today I'm going to share a little bit about my No Ordinary Woman journey. It's like everybody else's, it's a many-part series, but this particular version is just the overview of just having a look at some of the things that can happen in life and the journey that life takes us on, in spite of what our intentions were when we were young and all the dreams and aspirations we have. And personally, I grew up just a normal kid in a normal family. And, you know, it had its ups and downs as every family does. And I was very ambitious and I was quite driven, but I also had that insecure part of me and got picked on a little bit because I was the nice kid that was easy to pick on. And so I ran into a bit of, a bit of bullying that sort of pecked down my confidence a little bit. But going through through high school, I was still very driven and confident, and I had these great ideas and aspirations of what my life was going to look like. And I was really passionate about hairdressing. And by the age of 16, I had thought I'm going to have a string of hairdressing salons up and down the east coast of Australia, and be a very successful business owner. And then life happened, and I got married very young because I guess I was looking for that security of family and settling down, and had kids in my early 20s. But then life started to roll in some punches for me, and I had very severe postnatal depression. And that confident, bubbly hairdresser that sang in a band slowly lost her confidence. And obviously, depression does really nasty things. I ended up in hospital for about 3 months with my first child because it was quite severe. And it left me and my marriage quite damaged as a result, because I was probably too young and inexperienced in life to really work it out very well. And not like depression is easy to work out anyway. So that was the first punch that I took. And then I picked myself back up off the floor and pulled myself up by the bootstraps and had another kid, this time knowing that it was probably going to happen again, and had doctors set in place. And of course the postnatal depression happened again, and I went back to hospital just for a short amount of time. But it had still caused a lot of damage to both myself, my confidence, and my marriage. So by 1998, I found myself a single mother of two very small children, and still suffering from depression and anxiety, and trying to navigate my way through life. And determined to pick myself back up and dust myself back off and keep going. And I had to change careers, because at that stage I was a hairdresser and I just didn't know how I was going to manage part-time hairdressing work and managing kids and the hours, the retail hours and the Saturdays and all that sort of stuff. So I decided to get myself an office job and went into call center industry and started on the phones and worked my way up the corporate ladder in the call center industry. But meanwhile, I trudged along, and then I ended up in an abusive relationship, and it was not good for me or my self-confidence or my self-worth. And it chipped away at me a little bit more. The depression came back, and I took another punch to the head and hit the ground again. This came with it some bad habits and drinking and gambling as an escape from the misery of the situation that I had found myself in. But I realized that I had found myself in that situation because I really felt like I failed. I had good intentions. I was going to be the first one to get married and stay married in my family. I was going to have an amazing, happy family, and I was going to be a great mother, and I was going to be very successful at every single thing that I did. But I didn't factor in life, did I? So there I was again at the end, in this abusive relationship with very little self-confidence or strength left in me, I guess, because still trying to navigate my way through the depression and change of career. And I ended that relationship and tried to build myself back up again. And then I ended up with another relationship that was took me sort of into a lifestyle of a fairly party culture lifestyle, and I was trying to keep up, and it was really not sitting well with me and my values. So I was sort of compromising who I was. So losing a little bit more of my personality and my identity in this crowd that I ended up in. And the depression was still following me wherever I went, and trying to parent my children and be a different person at home to my children than I was when I was out with this new crowd that I found myself in. Meanwhile, my sister passed away, and that just sent me spiraling. She was my best friend, and that was another punch to the head from Thanks Life. And it sent me spiraling into a very, very bad place. And still, I maintained that, like, I can do this, but it was just getting harder and harder to pull myself back up by the bootstraps. It was getting harder and harder to keep that positive, I can do this, I'm going to beat life and I'm going to be awesome. And the more that life kept throwing things at me, the less strength I had. And I kept at that stage trying to claw my way back up off my butt when life knocked me over then. And did, slowly. But then along came another blow, which is when my son was diagnosed with an aggressive tumor in his arm, and we had a couple of surgeries. Long story short, a couple of surgeries. At one point they said he was possibly going to lose the use of his arm, and I'm like, what's going on? And I mean, everybody in life has life happening to them, but this in a short amount of time seemed like a lot of blows, and I just was harder and harder to find the strength. So after that one, I was still battling against, and it wasn't a losing battle against depression at this stage. I was winning that battle and I had it under control, and I rebuilt my life again, and I ended that relationship with that bad culture that was quite destructive, and left that, started a business, decided to climb my way back out of it again, and just rebuild. And I did get to the stage where it was rock bottom. And that's when I decided, and I like I threw my arms up in the sky and I said, I can't do this anymore, God. This life is just too hard. It wins. I can't do it. And at that point, it was like a do or die kind of, this is my last ditch effort to make this work, acknowledge all the things. And I think the most powerful part was acknowledging my part in some of those life blows, my decisions, taking some ownership of it, and going, well, I can take ownership of where I go to from here. So again, I clawed my way back out of that little pit that I was in and rebuilt and started a business, and decided that I wasn't going to let the experiences that happened to me or my past define what my future was going to look like. I went back to that ambitious little teenage girl that wanted to have businesses and that decided that her life was going to be awesome. And I decided to make it awesome from there. And that took a lot of courage, a lot of prayer, a lot of just patience with myself and rebuilding my identity, because my identity was completely lost in that mess of 1998 to 2008, all of those different blows. And of course, there was so much more that happened in that time, but they're the major key life events that happened. And it was just, I had gotten lost in it. I was, lost my identity in trying to please people, in trying to fit in trying to in the failure of my marriage, and just losing that confidence. And I needed to rebuild that and just redefine and re-identify who I was. So I poured myself into personal development and self-awareness, and learnt all about my different attributes, and re-embraced who I was created to be, and started loving who I was and embracing all of those decisions of my past and accepting everything about that, which takes time. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't overnight. And it all started to get better from there. And then I met my now husband, who is amazing, and I've got my businesses, and now I'm doing life coaching, helping other people navigate through those treacherous waters of the unexpected. Some of it's unexpected, and some of it is we really do put it on ourselves. And it's quite empowering to take ownership of those things that we do choose for ourselves. But some of it we don't choose. Life happens. So that's a little bit about what got me to here and why I'm so passionate about helping other people come through their difficulties and embrace the awesome of who they are and step into their future, the future that you always knew you could have, the person that you were always meant to be. And everything that I realized, everything that I needed to be successful at being me and successful at doing whatever I wanted to do was already within me. I'd just gotten lost, and I just maybe let go of some of it, and maybe thought some of it was not quite right, but it is right. It's all right. Everything about you is right. So that is my No Ordinary Woman story in a nutshell. So that's the overview of it. In future episodes, I'll drill down on some of those experiences and just share a little bit more about the postnatal depression, maybe share a little bit more about the experience through abuse. But that's, that's it in a nutshell. And I guess a big message that I want to give you in this video is that your past does not determine your future. Your past does not define you. If you can look at your past not as good or bad, but as helpful or unhelpful parts of your life, but part of your journey that got you to here. And that was probably one of the most empowering things I ever did, was just to embrace that whole thing. I went, yeah, well, that wasn't really good for me, but it was part of it was where I was at the time. It was what I did at the time. I can't change it. My actions don't define my heart or who I am. They are what I've done, not who I am. And some of it was good and some of it was not so good. So that's a sort of message that I really love to open up the possibilities of embracing everything about yourself and knowing how amazing and wonderful you are, and not letting your actions define who you are. They're just things you've done. They're not who you are. And also not letting your past define your future, because today is the first day of the rest of your life. I'm a big fan of saying we can hit the reset button every single morning when we wake up, and no matter what we did yesterday, we can choose what we're going to do today and do something different. The choice is ours. So if you've got any questions about that, or if you've enjoyed that video and that little insight into Fiona, and now you sort of know why I do what I do and why I love what I do and what my background is, and most of which qualifies me for being a better coach, because I have lived experiences in those areas. But yeah, drop a comment or a like, and if you've got any questions, I'm always more than happy to answer them. So thank you for joining me for another episode of No Ordinary Woman, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.